Kalamazoo Beer. We come with Brian, Brite Eyes Brewing Company. What you have done in this building is nothing short of astounding. Has anybody told you that yet, Brian?
Yeah, we get a lot of great compliments on it.
You know, it's funny because, driving by for months and seeing, okay, there's work, and all of a sudden it was like, boom, it was just done. Had to be something for you where you went, whew, it's great to be open.
Yeah, it looked like we would never get open for almost to the last minute. People would come in and go, I don't know how you're going to be open.
I bet,
Yeah.
and you're the newest brewery in town, at least, in age, so to speak. So how have the first couple of months actually gone?
It's been really good. We're learning the seasonality of restaurant and bar business, which, I'm inexperienced in all of this. So
Okay.
this is new for us. We've tried to surround ourselves with people who know what they're doing as best as possible, but they can only give you so much advice, and you kind of have to find your way through it yourself.
Well, I said you guys do breakfasts, you guys do food. I mean, the coffee bit, which I just had an espresso, it's delicious, and then the beer on top of it all.
Yeah, we're very different. I don't know of another model exactly like ours. There is one other coffee house brewery that kind of beat us to it in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
But we're the only one, as far as I know, in the state that opens for breakfast. And being the dual coffee house brewery was important to us because my wife doesn't drink beer.
Okay.
And so as we talked about difficulties we have in finding things to do together, of course, I always wanted to go to the breweries. And they just really didn't have much for her. So she would sit there as kind of the good, designated driver for me and basically bored. And wishing that she had some sort of artisan experience,
Right.
while she was there as well. And we talked to a lot of friends and they had the exact same problem. And we thought, well, why don't we just combine a coffee house and a brewery? Very similar crowds anyway.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot of fun, coffee beers and fun stuff like that. We serve cold brewed coffee off Nitro Tap, and I think we're the only ones doing that in the
I think
state
you are.
also.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, it's a neat. It's a coffee house vibe with beer. Is that a good way to
that
present
was
it?
important to us. We looked at a lot of buildings, and we intended to find a building that was already built out as a restaurant to save that obvious cost
Right.
build out. But we knew we would know it when we saw it, and when we saw this space with the windows and the high ceilings and the mid-century modern vibe, it was exactly what we wanted. We didn't want a dark bar. We didn't want low ceilings. This is what we were looking for. The view is stellar.
It is.
And so we thought, all right, we're just going to have to dig in, raise some money, and make this happen. So that's what we did. So it delayed our project quite a bit, but I think it was worth it.
So what's your background? I mean, beer? I mean, is it the brewing?
Home
piece?
brewer,
Okay.
not even for that long. It was, I think, 2011.
Okay.
For Christmas, we were shopping and saw the stupid Mr. Beer kit stacked out in the
You did
store.
too, huh?
And really, it wasn't even all that serious. I just referenced to it to my wife and said, well, you could just get me that for Christmas. And she doubled back and got it. And I even forgot I had it sat in my closet until probably February. And finally said, oh, that beer kit's in here, and brewed it, and it was awful. And some friends at work said, Bell's has a homebrew store. You should go down there and talk to them. And I didn't even know they had a homebrew store, and I went down there, and the guy that's now their manager was still behind the counter at the time, and he kind of took me under his wing and said, we'll do this, do that, hand wrote me a recipe, and
No kidding.
I just get way too into hobbies. Once I thought I liked it, it got ridiculous really fast. I had a brewery built in my house.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So when did you realize, okay, I'd love to be able to do this full time and make money on it?
Well, it was in the spring of 2013 I started talking to a friend that I worked with, and she displayed stained glass at Art Hop and
Okay.
shared a studio with some other artists at the Park Trade Center.
Okay.
And I said, I see for Art Hop a lot of people have wine out. Have you ever had somebody set homebrew out and see what people think? And she said, not that I know of, but that's a great idea. You should do that. And so we talked about it for several months and finally kind of got more and more serious about it. And I built a jockey box and kegged some beer. In August of 2013, I said, well, we're going to do this and we're going to make it a tasting.
Okay.
And I had another buddy in the homebrew club and he did it with me, and he had some bottled beers and I had some keg beers. And we set it up like a little bar in their studio, and we had a chalkboard with our beers written on it, and we made comment cards and let people rate the beers, and we kind of collected some demographics on them, which they were happy to provide.
Yeah.
And it was a huge hit, as free beer tends to be.
I'll bet, yes.
And so we just did little tastings, and people wrote all over the cards, awesome comments, wrote on the back of them, and just could not believe it. And so we thought, well, this is really fun. Let's do it again. And so we ended up doing it 5 months in a row.
Okay.
The Park Trade Center embraced it, gave us a space for 2 months to use. They were awesome. We finally ended up on the mall for December at Handmade Kalamazoo's pop-up store,
Okay.
and made that our final tasting. And by then we had a shoebox full of these comment cards and people pushing us like, when are you going to do something? And we had set up the LLC. In the meantime, we had set up a Facebook page. We had, I think we got the Twitter going, started to try to get a website up. And so then it just sort of snowballed from there. And so by January, I think it was, or February of 2014, I left my full-time job.
Okay.
Cashed in the 401k.
All right, there you go.
And just made the leap of faith and started looking for a space. Just went crazy from there.
Well, is it what you expected it to be, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, it's the promise is evident. The work is insane. I wear a lot of hats. I wear every hat. Yeah. And I'm the cook. I'm the barista. And we call them beeristas, by the way.
Nice.
I do all the brewing. 100% of the beer is me. I keg it. I clean the kegs. I brew it. I go and get the stuff. I mill it. I do all of it.
Wow.
So I do recipe development for the kitchen side also. Though it's just ridiculous.
I thought I was busy.
I'm just getting spun around in circles every day, and it's just get as much done as possible and start again tomorrow.
But it's what you expected. I mean, you knew.
I had run a business in the past down in South Bend, and I knew how much work is involved in owning a business and running a business. So it's not surprising. It's different. It wasn't a restaurant business, so it's a lot of things to learn.
Right.
And all of your inventory is perishable. Yeah. So it's not like it's just dust the widget off and set it back on the shelf. So you really have to be careful when you're spending and what you're spending on and how you're preparing it.
All right. So what's the favorite beer that you make? I mean, what's the one where you go?
Well, people are just IPA crazy. So
agreed.
It's not necessarily my favorite, although I like it. I brew everything to my taste, and I have a pretty broad palate. But I've always been impressed with a balanced IPA. Two Hearted is my favorite IPA by far because it's so well balanced.
It's the IPA that nobody realized it was an IPA when they drank it.
Yeah, it's just so good. And I love that, it's the back of the tongue bitter is just enough that it doesn't overwhelm all the wonderful aroma and all the flavors still come out. And you get this sort of West Coast IPAs that are just such an assault on the back of your tongue. They're just so bitter. And they're great, but they're just so bitter. With a Two-Hearted style, I think of that as a true Midwest IPA. And so when we designed Fearless the Idiot, we wanted it to have that same type of profile. So it's its own beast, but it is a very balanced IPA, and I get that comment from people all the time, and they really love it. So it's difficult to keep that one on tap, so I brew it all the time. I only have a one-barrel system, so it's a constant struggle to keep the beer on. And then our Dagwood's Wife Blonde is just a very true to style, very bready blonde ale, and it's very popular also. So those are the two that I always have on tap.
Okay.
I've got probably 6 that I would like to always have on tap, and then I have a lot of recipes that I developed, and so we've been just rotating through them and letting people have a shot at trying them, and they're all being really well received. So.
How often are you brewing every day?
No, right now I brew twice a week.
Okay.
For the winter, I was brewing in the fall when we started brewing. I was brewing 3 times a week, but it's fairly seasonal, and there's some dips around the holidays, so there wasn't any point in having beer sitting around. We try to keep it really fresh, and that's one of the advantages of having the small system is you can rotate them through really fast. I don't have 12 kegs sitting around when I brew. I have 2.
Right.
So they.
Well, I said, and you can do some experimental stuff. I would imagine in there too.
I do. I've. Despite having all these very carefully prepared recipes that I, developed at home and brewed over and over until I had them exactly right, I've winged, I don't know how many together since I've opened, just because it was fun to do. We did a mango IPA.
How'd that turn out?
Everybody loved it.
Oh,
so it was very subtle mango. I didn't want to beat people over the head, with the fruit. So it was there. It was there on the nose and there on the back of the tongue, but it was still an IPA and worked out really well.
Wow.
I've got a roasted chestnut brown that's getting ready to come out for Beer Week that I've never brewed before. We did a spiced rye stout that was a collaboration with Malt Mavens and Amy Wagman. Okay. It's actually her recipe, and we brewed that, so that's the first off. We've got a double espresso porter coming out on Saturday. Tea beer. I've never done that before, so I winged one of those together. Chocolate Tea over in Portage. They provide our teas.
Okay.
And it is I don't even know if I say it right. It's a lemon chiffon rooibos tea, which is an African tea. And it smells phenomenal, and I thought, man, if I can get any part of that into this bear, it's going to be great.
Have you tried? I mean, is it done? Have you tried it yet?
Well, I've done. You take gravity readings to see if your beer is finishing out, and I always taste the gravity readings, and it's really good.
Different?
It's I think it's really good.
Right.
So It's an amber ale, which is different. A lot of tea beers tend to be a lighter beer to make sure that comes out. We wanted to make it a little bit of bigger beer, so it's an amber beer. But it's interesting.
I find it interesting that a lot of people go for the big bold, and it sounds like you go for much more of the subtle.
I do. I like it. I like it to be subtle. I like all the flavors to come together at once. We do have some fairly large beers that we want to work in. However, with our small system, I would either have to do a half batch, so get one keg for a day's work,
right,
or do a double mash to get enough volume to boil, which would turn into a ridiculously long day. So I've been putting it off. But there's some that we have a Belgian dark strong that's just phenomenal that we call Darth Antwerp. And I've been meaning to brew it for months now, and it's just going to be such a big deal to brew the thing. And I've got two Imperial IPAs recipes ready to go too. That again, it's just going to be
matter of time.
Like arg.
All right. So how many beers do you have coming out for Beer Week? I mean, is there?
We have 4 releases total that we're doing. We weren't sure, being the new guys and everybody's so well established, and Beer Week is so frenzied. We didn't want to do too much and overreach, but we wanted to get involved and sort of participate. So we're doing that. We have our normal Monday night trivia night, and they're going to do some beer-related trivia for us for that. So that'll be fun for folks just looking for something to do Monday night. We have a comedy night kickoff tomorrow evening for Beer Week. And we have live music on Saturday for the first time, where we're doing the Chestnut Brown release associated with that also. So we're just trying to work a few things in there.
So being the new guy, how were you accepted in Kalamazoo as the new guy?
Well, I think people are still trying to figure out what we mean to them. So because we're not just a brewery, if we were just 4 to 11 or 4 to midnight or whatever, and you just come and drink beer and it was obvious and we had some chips out, they would instantly understand us. But people say, "Oh, a coffee house brewery, that's a great idea," and then in their mind you can see them trying to work through it, and they either instantly try to turn us into a coffee house or turn us into a brewery, and they don't get the blend. And so it's been the same in the beer community, and they all come in, they love it, and then when they leave and they start hearing them talk about breweries, we sometimes get mentioned, we sometimes don't, So, and that's on us. We just have to keep building in the beer portfolio and add in various groups. We're going to launch a mug club soon, and we're excited about it because we're going to have handmade mugs that will be 16-ounce mugs that will be dual purpose for coffee or beer.
Oh, neat.
And you can get a discount on a cafe drink or a beer. We're going to have our howlers back in stock, and we're going to ramp up our cold brew production so that people can come in and get a howler filled of cold brew.
Oh, nice.
Which we get requests for all the time. But right now we do 3-gallon batches of it. So we don't want somebody to fill a howler and walk off with half the batch.
No kidding, right? All right, anything else coming in the next 6 months after Beer Week, and you get a chance to get caught up and maybe breathe? Maybe?
Well, we're not fully installed yet. So there's things we're doing in-house. Our 3-barrel brewery will be on the mezzanine that you see.
Okay.
And it's been supported. It's got the epoxy floor. It's got the drains. Sinks are up there, but the equipment's not purchased and installed yet.
Okay.
That's what's going to make a big difference on our the various beers we can make, how much we can make. So it'll be a 3-barrel brew house as opposed to the 1-barrel. So very excited to see that actually happen.
I bet you are, yes.
That also will get me out of the way of the kitchen.
Okay.
I'm basically hogging the hood. So we have a little stove. Everything goes through this poor little 24-inch stove back there. So we're going to be able to expand the kitchen, expand all the food offerings, which a lot of people are excited about, including myself. And then out these windows, you see this bit of property here. This will be our beer garden.
Okay.
And we've got a lot of excitement generated around that too. So the middle windows will become doors, and we'll do a patio and a little wall around it. And it'll be a really cool spot to just sit and hang out and enjoy downtown. Yeah.
I'll bet. Yeah, very cool. All right, Brian, thank you much. I appreciate it today.